$20. That goes under the leadership retreat section on the campus pulse form. Additionally, I budgeted for 7 RSO council presidents. There are actually 8 RSO councils. The source does not list the cultural council on the website, and I made a mistake. I'm sorry for that. This is just adding an extra $500 for the cultural council advisor. So we did not budget for that. Well, I guess we just didn't budget for one, not them specifically, but still, all friendly amendments in total add $2,469.28 to the budget. And actually, that's a lot because we're decreasing some and we're moving some up. So it's just right around the equilibrium. You'll see in a few moments that compared to everything else, it's actually a very, very small amount. And all these amendments kind of have to happen because it's listed under stipend. That's a whole other thing for paying like half of 3/4 of this organization. For these friendly amendments, any questions? Awesome, guys. You guys are crazy. Moving on. Okay, now everybody lock in. This one is less procedural. This is a proposal I wanted to share with all of you. I didn't submit this initially under supplemental spending because I didn't want to just make the executive call that we're going to add $18,000 to the budget and then like ride or die, sink or swim the budget based on that. This is all up to you guys about whether or not you think this is a good idea. So this is the Student Life Gala proposal. This will go under supplemental spending. So next year, next spring, the student union will be turning 70 years old. As you guys may know, the student union has always been the hub of student life at UMass. It's been occupied by student organizations. It has been funded by student fees, and since 2016 has been controlled in majority by students. And we in the SGA have a wonderful responsibility of being the stewards of this hub for campus life, which I think is a wonderful thing. So I would like to propose the 70th anniversary gala next spring that would invite some alumni to the UMass Foundation, ideally to fundraise money for RSOs and the SATF in general, but primarily to exhibit, platform, and empower our student groups, including student performers, student activists, student artists. I want this to be a hub for student life at UMass because in many ways, this is the 70th anniversary of the explosion of that in the creation of the student union. So this will host student performers, activists, and artists, as well as welcome them as guests. And assumedly will take place in the student union ballroom, and it will be joint planning between the executive and legislative branch, and anybody else that would like to be a part of it. We move on. The cost breakdown, should the amendment pass, would be an amendment under supplemental spending. I just copied the amount that we did for Multicultural Night because a lot of that is security, a lot of that is basic services that we need, including catering for 400, which is the amount that the student union ballroom can hold. So we didn't have to change that at all. It is just a replication of the price of that because we don't have the specifics for what RSOs would like to join in, what we'd like to have. I would like that to be a group decision instead of a micro decision. The goal of this is to celebrate student engagement and leadership, and I don't want to charge students admission to celebrate themselves. That seems a little counterintuitive. So that's why this could be a lot lower if we charge students a bunch of money, but I don't want to do that. We are a government, guys. We aren't trying to get money from people. We already paid it. Additionally, the services of the student agencies and businesses ideally should be contracted for this, so it is student-led from the ground up over the summer. Should this pass, I would like to establish a planning committee not made up exclusively of the SGA, but also from our lovely student agencies and businesses to make sure they have a fundamental part in planning this event. Moving on. So I'm really trying to pitch this hard. So I did indeed put in the parts of our mission statement that are crucial to this. I'm not going to read them out. But both of those fall pretty heavily under this idea. And our job, partly, is to elevate and empower all student voices. This is a one-time expenditure to celebrate the anniversary of these student voices and student organizations, which is why I would strongly implore you to vote yes on this amendment. But how much does it cost? Great question. Let's move on. If this proposal were to pass, the SGA budget will go from $346,670.73 to $694,694.78. But something to keep in mind is that this is a one-time expense. This is not a permanent raise. This is just for an event that we as the SGA would like to throw on next year. So it's not like we are permanently tacking up our budget by $18,000 to do one of these every year. This is a one-time expense to celebrate a one-time event. This is a decrease. This is still a decrease of $32,760, which is 3.89% of the total SGA budget from FY26. And if all of the friendly amendments that we have covered previously pass, including this, the SGA budget will total $367,000, $367,164.06. Okay. Any questions about this gala idea? I've done a lot of talking at you.
So you mentioned that part of the benefit of this is not just celebrating student life, but also potentially fundraising. What's the mechanization there for not charging admission?
Well, I wouldn't like to charge admission to students, but through the UMass Foundation, which has a strong network of very, very wealthy alumni, and unlike departments where you kind of can only poach from those departments, if you were a student at UMass, you were a student at UMass, and this event is for you. So ideally, we don't charge for students, but we do charge for alumni, much in the same way that a lot of charity banquets do, where you're just charging per table. And the people who are attending, they aren't just coming to this to see college kids perform. They understand that the goal of this is to give more money to these student groups that they are coming to witness. Does that help?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I saw 2 more.
Is this in addition to Multicultural Night?
Yes.
Have the groups that you've listed to be on your planning committee agreed to be on the planning committee already?
Well, because the event doesn't exist yet, I haven't asked them.
Not a question, I have a statement. Can I do that?
Yeah.
I want to remind everyone that this past Multicultural Night was a grave failure on this organization because no one wanted to participate. The people who were in charge of doing it, I had to bail out as the vice president, and the next vice president is James Carroll, who I bailed out on that event. So.
Organization is important, guys. I will be forcing you all to attend if this does pass.
Would you be willing to remove Multicultural Night in favor of this if you feel like this is a better opportunity for success on our part?
I am not striking Multicultural Night. I am very sorry, but that's not something I'm going to do. Optics-wise, I think that's a very bad thing to do for this organization. It is the one event we do per year that empowers multicultural groups, and despite this year's Multicultural Night, it is kind of a tradition for us to do. Secondly, I feel they both fill very different niches, whereas Multicultural Night is an event by students to explore the cultures of UMass. This is a celebration of student activities at UMass Amherst specifically. It is a celebration of student activities, regardless of the council, regardless of the RSO. So I think because these fill 2 very different niches, I would not do that. Again, you guys can vote to sink or swim this. I would encourage you to make it swim because, again, even with this, our budget is still lower than the budget we passed last year. No matter if all of these pass or all of these fail, our budget is going to be less than it was last year. And I would like to create more opportunities and more events because compared to both our peer institutions and most other SGAs, we put on a fraction of the amount of programming that other student governments do. So both for visibility's sake, for student group's sake, I would urge that we do both.
I have 2 questions. So I guess in terms of the first one, I still think I'm kind of struggling with the idea of how we're going to be raising money with this event. Like, is there raffles? Like, what is the specific way we're going to be raising money? Like, as much as I agree that the UMass Foundation has a strong network, how are you enticing people to come to this and donate money to student organizations?
Well, to take a note from one of our very lovely student organizations on this campus, the Theater Guild recently had their 120th anniversary gala, which invited both students and alumni. And those alumni had plenty of chances to donate through fundraisers, through raffles, through multiple raffles, and through just straight up donations as well as their ticket price. So I'm not saying that we're going to break even on this. However, there is a difference between us hosting an event and raising the amount of money for RSOs than there is just not doing any event, because that fills a very narrow gap that we as an organization should be doing.
Okay, secondary question, I guess, is just how are you going to get participation from RSOs for us to even be able to put on this event if events like Multicultural Night were not exactly super successful? It's not me saying that it wasn't unsuccessful, on all fronts of just like there was a lack of participation on all sides. I just am concerned about getting more support from RSOs just from the jump based on the previous bad experience.
So I'm going to be really candid here, guys, and it's because I really believe in this organization and I really believe in what all of us can do. RSOs actually showed up. The Contagio Latino performed. The people who didn't show up were all of us. So if there's anybody we need to focus on getting to show up, and the people in this room that did attend, this isn't about you. If you didn't show up, the reason that we didn't get engagement in this event is because of you. So I need to have trust in you that you will show up, and you need to have trust in me that we will do this event. On the RSO side, we actually saw plenty of engagement, and I was very happy with that. And I think that if we as an organization had put more legwork into getting those RSOs engaged, which we are still doing through the RSO Council Presidents, which we are doing through the reforms to the way councils operate and the way we handle clubs in general, ideally we will get more buy-in. Also, we are scheduling this a year in advance. So. Okay, and you know what? I'm actually going to request a word from our advisor here, if that's possible. Could you maybe speak to what they do at the University of Arkansas or any peer institutions that you have researched in terms of programming and how we stack up to that?
Sure, I would just echo what you said. Most student governments only do programming. At the University of Arkansas, that was what I did almost nonstop, with programming and putting on events and the like. So it was very unusual for me to come here and have a student government that focuses more just on distributing money and not focused on a collective community environment via programming.
Thank you. And thank you very much to UBC TV and the Collegian for being here tonight and reporting on that, because that does help with our visibility, because as you guys may notice, the visibility of our meetings is not great. The visibility of the SGA in general is not great. We need to be out there doing more, hosting more events for the student body, which is why I would urge the importance of doing such an event.
Aren't we kind of unique from other peer institutions because we fund a university programming council?
I think most, yeah.
Yeah, most, that's almost what most student governments do, is fund university programming councils.
Yes. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh goodness, I had a question and I kind of lost it. I don't know, I really like this idea. I think we had a conversation with maybe with some influential on this idea. What was my question? Fucking, this is really embarrassing.
Language.
Sorry. I don't know, I guess like, I feel anecdotally like there's been a broad decrease in student participation in stuff on this campus throughout my time here at UMass. I guess connected to this event, like how do you, like, what sort of concrete steps could we take, do you think, towards increasing that, especially compared to multicultural night, et cetera?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that in the SGA, especially in SGA leadership, we are all paid by student tuition to do services for this student body. I try to make that not lost on me at any point. And so by approving this now, although I don't have all the specifics for what the raffle is going to be, or what the food is going to be, or what the exact date is going to be, it is important to have this money so that we as an organization can dedicate ourselves to certain projects that we are confident we will be able to fulfill. We as an organization have so much more opportunity than any other thing on this campus. We fund 12 agencies, including The Source, which talks to every RSO on a regular basis. And if we aren't hosting programming, if we aren't doing outreach events to empower, host, and platform those organizations, or at least try to, then I think, like that, I feel like that's our job, is to empower these student organizations. So despite the fact that student involvement has been decreasing in general, I have been to many ESL events you guys are supposed to go to too, where I have seen incredible student engagement, and that is because they put in legwork. And I know we as an organization can put in that legwork to make this event happen.
I like the idea and I like the passion that you bring into this project. I think my only question is, like, structure-wise, multicultural night would happen in the fall, and then in the spring this would happen. But say like this year, there's something that happens with multicultural night and it can't happen in the fall. Does that money just go right back into the SATF, or are we going to have a multicultural night in the spring and this in the spring as well?
That's a great question. So we actually were approved for Multicultural Night in the fall this year, and it ended up happening in the spring anyways. And again, I feel that these events fill such different niches that having one, even if we have to, although not ideal in the same semester as another, will not detract from the other if we really are 10 toes down, boots on the ground about doing these events. And I think the attitude we as an organization should have is not that things are going to be bad, but instead that things will be good because we will work to make them good. Any other questions?
Do you have any idea of how much money you'd be looking to fundraise from this, either compared to theater guilds or your own estimations, or what you think that you'd be planning to draw in?
Truly, I do not have a projection right now. A lot of these questions, I imagine, would be answered through the planning committee, which we would establish throughout the summer, should this be approved. And that is because, again, I didn't want to make a bunch of Michael calls that will sink or swim this idea, because I'm just one guy. And this is a room full of people who were elected for their diverse opinions, skill sets, and thoughts on matters pursuant to this. So I think the way to answer a question like that is through research, is through a committee comprised not only of myself, but of everybody else. And again, if we don't spend this money or we don't spend all of this money, it goes directly back into the SATF next year. Anybody else? These are very thoughtful. I appreciate it. Okay. We're all feeling good then. We're going to move on. Okay. Conclusions. This is the wrapping it up part. So thank you for bearing with all of this. If all amendments are accepted, including the gala, the FY27 SGA budget will be $367,164.06. That is 5.93% of the FY27 SATF, which is 2.07% below the bylaw mandated cap. It is a decrease of 0.57% of the SATF from FY26. And penultimately, it is a decrease of $12,266.67 from last year's budget. So with amendments, without amendments, at its maximum, at its lowest, it is still a decrease from what we filed for last year. And again, all of that money that we are decreasing from ourselves goes to RSOs, ESOs, agencies, the multiple funds we manage. For all of them, either way, no matter what, the budget is being decreased unless we all, I don't know, we leave right now, we lose corn, we go back to last year's budget. But I believe we won't do that. Are there any questions about the budget in general?
Hi, could you speak a little bit to the increase from 12.5 to 15 hours for most of the leadership of the SGA for next year?
Yes, so I can only speak to executive because I didn't make any calls on legislative. I just listened to what the legislative branch was suggesting. For the executive, because we are shrinking down the cabinet from 12 to 8, that naturally leaves a couple gaps in pay. And because of that, each secretary is going to be mandated to, well, secretary turned director, will be mandated to supervise a team of their own. And when we're looking at the fact that actually only, I've done so much math today, but 5. Aside from the fact that only 5 directors will be going up from 12.5 to 15, Attorney General, Finance, and Registry were already at 15, which was already decreased from 17.5 hours a week, because they're going to have to now oversee additional supervisory responsibilities for multiple members of their own staff. That is where that extra 2.5 comes from, because we are adding responsibilities they did not previously have. And 2.5 hours per week to supervise a team of 2 people and manage the reports and manage the work of their offices, that's already not a ton. So that is where the increase is coming from. Is that? Oh.
Yeah, does this new amount reflect the amendments as well, in addition to the proposals?
Yes, this is if all amendments pass. If it doesn't, it will be a significant less amount.
Yeah, I'm just crunching the numbers. I believe it's a little bit slightly more. It's I have $368,864.78. So within, I just wanted to give you that.
With it, but it's within 1,000.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So under the 33% for supplemental.
I apologize then, that was a mistake on my
No
end.
worries.
But either way, it is still a decrease of over $10,000 from last year's budget, which is money that is additionally going back to all the people we fund. Any more questions? Because we got another presentation after this about all the ways and means suggested amendments. Is there anything in this presentation that you are not certain of? Now is the time.
So regarding the increase in certain exec hours, would you be willing to give us a breakdown of which roles are receiving more hours per week and what roles they will be supervising and why they need that 2.5 increase?
So yes, I'll go over it quickly right now because it was presented last week and then it was presented the week before that, and in both of those is the slideshow and the actual verbiage of all of those positions that we as a body voted on. But to summarize, let's see if I can run this off the top of my head. This is gonna be bad. PR, student affairs and campus life, external affairs. Oh, this is not gonna work. Can I just look at the presentation on my phone? Wonderful. Oh yeah, can you just pull up the Title III presentation I did? Oh, sorry there. And then just go to the new organizational structure. That one. Okay, yes. So the ones that are increasing, it's not all of these. Actually, the only ones that are increasing are student affairs and university life, which is going from 12.5 to 15. Public relations, which is also doing that. DEI, chief of staff, and the director of community relations. All of those are going from 12.5 to 15. Chief of staff is going from 12.5 to 15 because a couple of years ago, it was budgeted for 15, then we took it down to 12.5. Wait a minute, I just lied to you. This year it was at 15. It was not at 12.5. I just lied again. Sorry, guys. It's been a lot of numbers. But regardless, a couple of years ago, it was budgeted at 15, and we knocked it down to 12.5. And because all of the directors are going up, it seems a little weird to have just one of them be paid less than the rest. DEI will now have to supervise the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs and the Commissioner of International Students, which are both budgeted at 5 hours a week, so that's where the extra 2.5 comes from them. Student Affairs and University Life, we moved Student Life and Recreation, so ignore that. But the Commissioner of Sustainability and the Commissioner of Health and Accessibility, they now have to manage both of them, which is where the extra 2.5 comes from. Director of Public Relations now has to supervise the Chief Technology Officer and the Commissioner of Student Life and Recreation, which is where those extra 2.5 come from, which, as you can see, is pretty in line with the system we already had, where positions like the Director of the Registry, Director of Finance, and the Attorney General had supervisory responsibilities. So that's where my increase for that came from, is because those three are given an increase over the rest because they have to supervise people. So if we're giving the rest of them supervisory responsibilities, why are they also not getting boosts? Does that make sense? Wonderful. Okay. Closing thoughts. I appreciate it, guys. I think that is all I have for you, but if any questions come up, I will be in this room. Thank you all for listening so carefully and all the couple questions.
Thank you. I believe Ways and Means has a presentation next.
Can we get 5 minutes to run the numbers? Yes.
All right.
Possible.
Sure. We do have another presentation to go over anyway, right? Chair Saversky has a presentation on the UMass Locator app. We'll run in the meantime.
So this is about this app that I'm working with this guy on. It's like this project that he contacted me. And it's this app, maybe you guys have heard of it. It's called UMass Locator. So first of all, the guy who came to me about it, he's a UMass alum named Carlos something. And he was like a computer science major or something alum. But so he designed this app. It's kind of like based off of Google Maps. And it's like a navigation tool around that can be used on campus. Yeah, there's iOS, Android, and web, which is cool. So it helps you, like, it gives you directions. But not just that, you can find like in each building, like how many bathrooms each one has, and like water bottle stations, which is pretty cool. And here's some statistics on the searches. He's the one who put this together, so this is all from his side of the making of it. So it's like it's like decently established, but he's just interested in like getting it more like I don't know, getting more people to use it. And he wants more feedback on it. That's more data about some of the top buildings that people need, which is cool. Yeah, these ones. So I'm sure you guys know them. Yep, there's pictures of them in case you didn't know them. So this is the pilot that he wanted. Yeah, he just wants to know like what other what other things people would want to see on the app, like elevators and accessibility things and studying spaces, which I think is cool. So he wants it to be like shared through us because we can talk to our friends about them. And he wants feedback on his app and problem areas. And he just wants to work on it, which is cool because I don't know, I think he just likes this. I think it's just like a passion project, which I think is fun. But I was thinking it could be shared. Can I get a show of hands if anyone's heard of this before? Oh, wow, great. So I don't know, maybe it can be shared with like incoming freshmen, or I don't know, everyone is supposed to hear after seeing this to maybe if someone is like, oh, I'm lost, I don't know how to get anywhere, and be like, oh, there's this app, this is what it is. So, okay, next slide. And that's the feedback form that he wanted. So you can scan it. It's kind of long, I think, but the main point is he just wants like more people to know about it. And yep, that's it. You can leave it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? We have a question over there. Senator Walker Hoover. Can you run the mic down? Just listening. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I like this idea a lot. I'm just curious because as someone who hosts events with the RSO, I have guest speakers come a lot and they have no clue where any of the buildings are. And so just the accessibility for folks who aren't like UMass students, is it possible for people to download it if they're just a general public member?
Yeah, you can, like it's on the App Store. Like you can look it up in the App Store, it's there. So like literally anyone can download it, even if you don't know what UMass is, you can still download it. Or if you live in like China or something, you can still download it, and it's for anyone. So yeah, so that's also another thing for people at like conferences or something.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. This is also a website, by the way, guys. You should look it up, UMass Locator. My community is interested in seeing if we could add, we could work with the guy to add menstrual product locations to this. There are pictures of bathrooms and water stations and phone stations for every building, but potentially adding additional stuff like that so you can search for where the closest like menstrual products are if you need them, or like Narcan, AEDs, stuff like that. So
I will let Mr. Carlos know.
thank you.
I got you.
Is there any way for like the student government to like contribute any small amount of funding or purchase any sort of ownership in this app in any sort of way? Because I know it has ads, and it's like the ads are really non-invasive, but so I think it would be cool if we had some sort of long-term control over it to turn into advertising for UMass.
I can talk to him about that, about the possibility of that.
Are there any further questions? All right, perfect. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, you guys can talk. Chair Tron?
2 seconds.
Sorry. Do you guys have a microphone back there?
We do.
Okay.
Alrighty. Hopefully this will go a little bit quicker. Alright, we're gonna go to the intro about the process, a little bit more about the process, the criteria used for evaluating SGA's budget requests, committee recommendations alongside a graph of all the recommendations, so we'll have the two proposals side by side, and then Q&A. Okay, so basically this process was proposed last spring, it passed, additional amendments were made in the fall and spring. Basically, this was submitted March 31st, it's been reviewed by the committee. The reason that we have this budgeting process is because the SGA is a unique ESO, so we don't really fall into that category of RSO or agency guidelines. Okay, so very brief. Officer President submits budget, Ways and Means reviews, then Officer President gives presentation, then I give presentation on behalf of the committee. Skip that part. Then there will be an amendment period for the mandatory and supplemental part, and then we'll vote on if there's contention between the mandatory and supplemental, we'll vote on them separately. If it's unanimous, we'll vote on it all as one big package. And then it falls into two categories, mandatory and supplemental. You guys can read the rest. And the presentation can also be found in the supplemental materials, question mark. Okay. So basically Title VI says for mandatory spending, expenditures that are essential for the operation of the undergraduate student government association per our constitution and general bylaws. And then for supplemental spending, Title VI does not specifically have any criteria, but generally speaking for the SGA funding guidelines, all items must obviously adhere for us to carry out our mission statement, support fee-paying students, ESO, or SGA outreach directly or indirectly, and carry out any sort of professional or mandatory obligations. Straight from our constitution, pretty self-explanatory. And so this is kind of what the old amount was for the total funding initially requested here on Campus Pulse. It's about 6.5% last year, and this year it's about 5.6% of the SATF. Again, this is before amendments. Okay. And then this is the slide here for what the initial amount that was requested is. So it's about 27% for supplemental spending and 72% for the mandatory spending. And this is just a brief breakdown. There are a couple paper packets around, but there's also in supplemental materials for the full SGA initial budget request here, the full breakdown of hours per week, fall, winter, spring, and then the total amount that they're being paid here. So if no one has any questions, I move on to the next slide. This is more payroll. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So, any other questions? No questions. Okay. So basically, the committee gave positive recommendations for all payroll requested except for Commissioner of International Student Affairs. This was just to discrepancy within the description of the cost breakdown, which I believe President Borowski has addressed in his presentation. So. Same thing, this is just a breakdown of the initial proposed legislative payroll with all the hours per week in total. Any questions? Oh, sorry, I should say 20 hours. The final number is correct, though. The title.
Yeah, fall and spring are supposed to say 20.
So for the campaign fund, that is a $5,000 mandatory. That hasn't been no additional appropriations for campaigning fund has been requested. Typically, we do not use the 5,000 fully from campaign funds. For the elective fund, 8,000 is mandated via our bylaws, and then the Office of the President has requested the additional 22,000 alongside additional amendments that you just presented. This is a very brief breakdown straight from Campus Pulse about the comic advising program. Basically, they're requesting 2 additional comic advisors. This is the full cost breakdown in the presentation, also in the supplemental. If anyone has any questions, please ask. And then this was the initial RSO Council Presidents. If no one has any questions, we can go through this a little quickly here. This is just a general breakdown of the items. Okay, so now committee and updated recommendations. So all of this in green here is what's been initially recommended by the committee. So this is stuff mentioned before, switching from stipend back to payroll. Basically the way it works is it's stipend, you get paid at the end of the semester, and payroll is paid by hour. So that's just in line with that. Yeah, and then for finance subcommittee, adding the 4 people on the committee at 1 hour a week for the additional 1680. And then for the updating the ways and means, so in the fall will be budgeted for 10 hours, for 10 weeks, and then in the spring will be budgeted for 12 hours. The reason is the first 4 weeks in spring are first 4 weeks in fall, that's typically when we get the committee, when we train up the committee, so those first 4 weeks we won't really be budget building. Okay, so this is what would be the FY27 SGA budgets with only the committee amendments. So that would be about 28%, up from like 27.4% for supplemental spending. I can get the exact numbers. So that would bring us to $349,550.73. That would be the new total with the committee recommendations. Okay, so this is with all the amendments here. I believe there's also another slide as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so this is the full amendments with the committee recommendations and all the amendments presented by the Office of the President. This would bring us to 32.2% in discretionary spending, which is just up to our cap of 33% of supplemental spending, and then bring up our mandatory to 67.8%. And the total cost for that would be $370,684.78 if we were to go for Senate were to vote on all the amendments committee and Office of President's proposed. Any questions?
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. The way my mind is working right now, I just need like a tax breakdown on this. Like I know that's probably not present, but like how does it work versus like stipend and payroll? Because I know they're taxed differently. That might be a JD question too.
They're not taxed differently.
They're not?
Nope.
The main difference between the stipend and the payroll is stipend you get at the end of the semester, whereas payroll you're like logging it. And I think from talking with JD, you said that if you have like a university bill, the stipend will cover that first instead of like going to direct deposit. So that's the main difference between the payroll and the stipend.
Any further questions?
So you mentioned that on slide 29, all the stuff that's highlighted in green are amendments that are recommended by Ways and Means. Are the remaining amendments that are not recommended?
The remaining amendments that were suggested today was stuff that was like just put on, so the committee hasn't had the chance to review it. So that doesn't mean there's an endorsement, that doesn't mean there's not an endorsement, it just means the committee hasn't had the chance to review it.
Are there any further questions? Anyone?
About the budget or the amendment process or anything?
Yeah, President Borowski.
All right, we'll just swap these. Do we need to vote on each amendment individually, or can we like group vote them by Ways and Means suggested ones, then individual ones, and then the gala?
Since they're friendly amendments, we'll group vote them. If any senator objects, then we'll go through them individually.
Wonderful, okay.
Any further questions? All right, perfect. Thanks, Darren. Is there any other business for committee of the whole? If not, then the committee of the whole will stand adjourned and the Senate will continue considering the remainder of the agenda. We'll now move on to special orders. The only special order we have for today is S90, a motion to fund the Student Government Association of $346,670.73 from the Student Activities Trust Fund. This is sponsored by Chair Trong and was reviewed by the Committee on Ways and Means on April 20th and was reported, well, with amendments, I guess. Does the sponsorship just want to yield to questions immediately?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Here's how we'll do it. Wait, where's the last mic? Okay, thank you. Darren, can you come up to the front with your mic? And then Mike, can you put your mic on the stand? If you have a question, please line up behind one of the two microphones and wait to be recognized. If there are any questions. But yeah. All the sponsorship can stand up at the front of the room. And again, if you have a question, please line up behind one of the two microphones and wait to be recognized. No questions? All right, then we'll move on. Does the special order have a second? Chair will now entertain a motion to amend.
Motion to amend S90 from $346,000 from the amount listed up there to $349,550.73, which will include all of the Ways and Means recommendations.
All right, so the Ways and Means, I can read out the amendments. Motion to amend has been called. It's the Ways and Means recommendation section, right? Okay. The amendments are to change the line items under legislative payroll from the classification stipend to payroll, change the line item chair of the Outreach and Development Subcommittee to chair of the Outreach and Development Committee, to change the line items under judiciary payroll from stipend to payroll, to change the line items under Elections Commission from stipend to payroll, to amend the line item under legislative payroll, budget reviewers for payroll at 5 hours from 20 weeks to 22 weeks, and to add line items as mandatory spending under legislative payroll, which is Finance Subcommittee Budget Reviewer, for 4 reviewers at 1 hour a week for the 28 weeks. Those are the amendments.
This is the committee recommendation. So they recommend for international students.
I don't see any such recommendation. Are there any questions about the amendments? Is there a second for the amendment? Does the sponsorship accept the amendments? I would guess so. Did you have a question about the amendments?
just a little confused on how that affects the gala suggestion earlier.
This amendment is not including the gala suggestion. So right now, we're just voting on the recommendations that were in the presentation by Ways and Means. How much does it add to it?
The new total is $349,550.73.
So it adds about, wait, what'd you say?
$349,550.73.
Okay, so this adds about $3,000, but it does not include the gala, these amendments. All right, so the amendments have been seconded. Does the sponsorship accept these amendments? All right, then we'll have that reflected. The new total is, can you read it again? Yeah, thank you. The new total for the SGA budget as amended now is $349,550.73. The chair will entertain further amendments or a motion to enter debate. Debating the budget. Yeah, I'll also take more amendments.
Somebody proposed all the other amendments. Anybody just raise your hand and say motion to amend. One person. I see one.
Oh, yeah, wait, what are we doing? Are we further amending it?
Yeah.
If someone makes a motion to amend, yeah, we'll keep amending the budget.
Yeah, wait, hold on. What are we doing here? So
Right now, I am taking further amendments. I will also take a motion to debate. If there are neither of those, we will move on to the final vote for the budget.
My other amendments. Yes, all the other amendments. No, we don't, okay. Well, a point of clarification.
The amendment we just did was a friendly amendment. So since it got a second and the sponsorship accepted it, we'll reflect it. I mean, unless there's any objection from a senator about the friendly amendments, in which case we'll go to a vote. But I don't believe there was, so.
So the other amendments that were proposed were pretty much everything else I talked about. That the gala will be voted on separately because the rest are very position specific, like the RSO council presidents, which we had already said that we are going to fund, including some other edits to the wages for the Commissioner of International Students and Veterans Affairs, and some things for the leadership retreat. So we have more clerical edits, including the printer that were reviewed by the Ways and Means Committee and suggested to be edited, but they didn't review the edited ones. So if somebody can motion to amend so we can review those new ones, that'd be wonderful. Chair Mello. Thank you. Okay, in that case, I'm going to get the show on the road.
Motion to amend has been called. Yeah. I think I'm going from the Deputy Chief of Staff section.
Yes, from Deputy Chief of Staff onward.
Okay. So the proposed amendments are to add line item as mandatory spending under executive payroll, the Deputy Chief of Staff under payroll classification at 5 hours a week for the 28 weeks of the fall and spring semester. To amend the line item RSO council presidents under supplemental spending in the classification stipend to increase the amount of roles requested from 7 to 8, which adds $500 to the line item. To strike the line item printer under supplies, equipment, and administrative. To amend the line item printer lease under supplies, equipment, and administrative from $947.28 to $1,668, as well as adding the documentation for this new amount, which is linked there. And this whole document is in supplemental materials, by the way. Further amendments to amend the line item early move-in expense, which is classified as miscellaneous, to place it under leadership retreat to reflect the accurate amount of SJ leadership in attendance, decreasing the number from 31 to 28, which at $60 per student amounts to $1,680. To add the line item food, which is classified as food items, meals under leadership retreat, to provide catering to the mandated student attendees, which using ad hoc funding guidelines for catering at one lunch for 28 students at $20, and one dinner for 28 students at $40 totals $1,820. To amend the line item Commissioner of International Student Affairs to accurately reflect the cost breakdown. The position is currently budgeted at 8 hours a week for the fall and spring semesters, and this amendment will bring that to the accurate amount, which is 5 hours a week for both semesters, while removing pay for the winter and the summer. And finally, to amend the line item Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, classified as payroll under executive payroll, to accurately reflect the cost breakdown. The position is currently budgeted at 5 hours a week for the fall and spring. And so this amendment is just correcting the cost breakdown while removing pay for winter and summer. Are there any questions about those proposed amendments?
Okay, wonderful.
Is there a second for the amendments? Does the sponsorship accept the amendments? Any objections from the Senate? All right, seeing no objections, the amendments will be reflected in the new budget. So with that, if you guys are following along on the budget amendments Google Doc, we've done every amendment except for the proposal for the gala. That's correct?
Yes.
All right. The chair will entertain further motions to amend or a motion to enter debate. Otherwise, we'll move on. Motion to amend. Motion to amend has been called. The amendment reads as follows. To add line item under supplemental spending, that being Student Union 70th Anniversary Gala at $18,024.05, duplicating the cost breakdown in line items listed under Multicultural Night. Are there any questions about the proposed amendment? Yeah. If you could come up to the mic, please. I'd appreciate it. You're missing a microphone again?
Sorry, you might have already talked about this, but I was curious, you mentioned like student activists and representing them. Did you already talk about this at all? How you planned on like, I don't know how activists would kind of like be represented or engaged in like activities or like presentations, like I don't know, how do you plan to do that?
Okay, so aside from some displays I would like to do in tandem with student activists and special collections in university archives who have a detailed history of activism at UMass, which has been pretty fundamental to the school for a while. I would also like to have guest speakers that aren't us, because we do a lot of our own talking already, and that's something that actually, taking more notes from the Theater Guild Gala, they had a collection of speakers of influential people in the art of theater. So I figure in the art of student activism, we can have speakers from them come to represent their organizations, their interests, what they've done, et cetera, and so on. Does that help? Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, just come up to it. Senator Wu, go ahead.
Hello, just point of clarification, are we adding this to our friendly amendments to be block voted on?
No, all the other amendments have already been adopted.
Okay,
We're just considering this by itself right now.
okay, and we're open it for question, right?
Right now, we're in the questioning period. After this, I'll take a second. I'll ask the sponsor if they accept the amendment, and then I'll ask for any objections from the Senate. If there's any objections, we'll enter debate on the motion.
Okay. I do have a question. So for this amount, like multicultural night and the students and the anniversary gala, are you projecting there to be like similar items you'll be spending on? Is that why it's the same number?
Yes, I was going to go through the trouble of creating a budget proposal for this, but again, I kind of don't want this to just be a President/Michael thing. I think this should be a group effort, and if we're looking at the costs associated with Multicultural Night, all of those carry over to what, because all of it is decor, security, catering for 400, which is the capacity of the Student Union Ballroom. All of them emulate exactly to another event. Obviously, we'll be buying different things, but in most cases, that's going to be like, instead of gold streamers, we're going to have maroon ones.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, the price still does accurately reflect what the event would be should the Senate choose to accept it. Anybody else?
Any further questions? Is there a second for the amendment? Does the sponsorship accept the amendment?
Oh, no, yeah.
Are there any objections to the amendment? All right, objection's been declared, and so we'll enter parliamentary debate. All of those in support of the amendment, please line up behind this microphone that I'm pointing at right now, the one that's closer to the podium. All those opposed to the amendments, please line up behind the microphone further from the podium. Debate on the motion is now in order. Each member may speak for or against the motion with a time limit of 1 minute per speaker. Just a few reminders, a member of each side will be recognized in an alternating fashion, starting with the opposition. Please direct all comments to me, the chair, and for non-voting members of the Senate to participate, they must have the floor yielded to them by a senator. Any questions before we start? All right, in that case, let me pull up my timer. Yeah, I'll give you a gavel tap when you have 15 seconds left. Opposition, you have 1 minute. Are you ready? Yeah, opposition. Opposition goes first. 1 minute, you ready? All right, your time starts now.
So while I really appreciate this idea in theory, I'm kind of concerned that we're allocating some money to something that we haven't completely thought through, in my personal opinion. Especially since we're equating this to multicultural night. However, ideally, since this is a fundraiser and since we'd be having it in the student union ballroom, I guess, there would be more people, and this would seem to be a longer event because we're doing fundraising stuff and we're also doing speaker events and we're also doing arts performances, but we're also doing activism related stuff. I just feel like we should maybe think this through a little bit more before we just allocate funding to it. That's my main concern.
20 seconds remaining on the opposition.
Yeah, I've just been worried about allocating money in this way. I think multicultural night, I can understand its importance, but even this year and the year previously, it was a struggle to set up. I helped out for hours last year setting up, and we still barely got it done in time. Though this year, they did not make it in time, and it had to be delayed. I'm just worried about the organization of this time.
Time, thank you. Support, you have 1 minute, your time starts now.
I hear out the talks about needing to plan this out more, and I'm going to say that we cannot plan this out more after today because the time to request a budget for this event is today. That is the only time we can do it. If we do it after this, then we won't have money for it, and we can't do it. And again, if we approve money for this and it turns out that we don't end up wanting to do it or we don't have engagement, then that money goes directly back into the SATF and directly where it would have been anyways had we not done the event. I think in the SGA, we are all paid by school leadership who is entrusted to do things like program these events, are paid by student tuition to show up and bring their best. And I think if we are hiring people to do that and we are establishing committees to do it, I don't want to go forward into this organization with a thought process of we can't because it's too hard. I want to go in with we have the resources available because students have given us part of their tuition to steward. It is up to us to program, plan, and platform their voices at an event like this.
Time, thank you. Opposition, you have 1 minute. We'll let Leo go first. Since you would be in the back of the order, right? Because you already went. And then you came up? Okay, okay. All right. No, that's fine then. That's fine then. Okay. My fault.
Okay, thank you.
Wait. Sorry, I'll start the timer. Okay, go now.
Okay, I really appreciate the idea, and I totally agree that we should allocate our money and the resources to benefit the campus community life in overall. However, I still have a little bit of concern. It's not like a little bit concerned about this budget because we do have resources, but the thing is that we are using a resource to benefit a student. But my question is that are we using the resource effectively? Because the duplicate of this is, I don't think it's sustainable because in the first event, we did not do it well. And I think what we should focus on is that we could allocate more money for the multicultural night to make it even a better event. And then we good on that, and we could move to the second event like this. It's going to be more beneficial instead of duplicating 2 events per student. I think it's not effective resource used for money of student SATFT.
Point of clarification.
9 minutes or 9 seconds.
Point of clarification?
Yeah, okay, I'll pause time. What's the point of clarification?
Yeah, just to clarify, if we were to allocate the about $18,000, that would go into like the SGA budget. However, if we weren't using that, that would go back at the end of the year. However, that is like $18,000 that can like be allocated, just for point of clarification and how funds are allocated.
You have a point of clarification, Senator Walker Hoover? Point of parliamentary inquiry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just confused because like, I feel like this idea counts as discretionary spending. And so that's my question is like, wouldn't this, like to have like something like this, wouldn't that just be discretion instead of supplementary? Because like we clearly, you know, this seems like a good idea. We might not have all the details fleshed out, but like, wouldn't it be discretion?
I'm not sure. If you want to bring it up in debate, that's fine, but we'll continue with the debate. Do you have a point of clarification? Okay, point of clarification is fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the difference between supplemental and elective fund, the supplemental fund is still in our fee account. With the new Title VI, the elective fund would be a separate account from the SGA account for transparency purposes. And so like the supplemental spending, generally speaking, it'll still have like that line and breakdown, so we can only spend on what's previously been budgeted for. Whereas with the elective fund, that's completely at the discretion of the Office of the President or Office of the Speaker, respectively.
Opposition, you have 9 seconds remaining if you want to use it. All right.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is that we don't want to do stuff like this. It's just the prag and the planning. We really love multicultural night, but the issue wasn't that we didn't want to love multicultural night. It was the prag.
Thank you. Support, you have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
Yeah, I think that for this particular event, I think that we have kind of a unique opportunity coming at the next year. Whereas I think this past sort of SGA term cycle was marked by a particular, like an unusually high degree compared to the previous sort of cycle term, whatever, an unusually high degree of turnover, an unusually high number of people leaving the organization from anecdotally from what I've heard, versus in this next cycle, we're going to be seeing a pretty unique opportunity of having like the first, second term administration in like a number of years. There's going to be an unusual amount of continuity. I think also the fact that it's the 70th anniversary of the student union provides a pretty unique opportunity. And so I think, I think that like setting aside a certain amount, like a pretty rough estimate of money towards this, it makes sense. And I think it makes sense to bring
Time.
We need to know that this is going to happen.
Opposition, you have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
I think that looking at the continuity as a good thing would be a humongous mistake. The last time that we tried to throw an event, which was literally a month ago, there were like maybe 4 people who are participating in that. The next administration is the same exact people, and they have yet to prove that they can pull off a large-scale event. Give this $20,000 right back to the organizations. Let the RSOs do stuff. You guys didn't want to do fundraising for free earlier in the year. You don't want to participate in the fundraising efforts right now. You don't want to talk about the endowment. So if we aren't going to do it for free, we're not going to do it for 20 grand. So just give it right back to the organizations who need it.
18 seconds left. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so when RSOs want to throw big events, we kind of make them jump through a significant number of hoops because we need to know what they're going to do with that money. I think we should hold that same expectation for ourselves, regardless of convenience or whether or not it's an internal event. I think we should put a little bit more thought into that just based off of our expectation of external organizations.
Correction.
You have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
RSOs can apply for funding on an ad hoc basis, so they can do that at any point in the year. The only time we can apply for this money is right now. And I didn't want to plan the entire event by myself because the president doing everything all by himself seems like an overstep of power. I'm going to use my time.
45 seconds.
I'm just going to say that seeing the direction SGA is going as an overview, looking at the big picture, it's a good idea to involve more students, have that aspect going on. So that's one of the components. The other component is we need to have the chance to continue to prove ourselves as an organization to involve more students.
16 seconds left.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that the student government doesn't do a good enough job, like getting out to the student body. There's no harm in allocating this money. If we, choose to not use it, we can choose that later on. There's still more time to talk, and like we can do big things if we want to. I don't.
Time.
We can do it.
Opposition, you have 1 minute.
There's harm.
Yeah, wait, sorry. In the back. What is it? Point of clarification. Go ahead, Chair Tron.
Yeah, just to clarify with what happens with the 18K, if we allocate that 18,000 and it doesn't get spent, that comes back at the end of the year. However, that is potentially 18,000 that could be going to RSOs right now. We're going to finalize the S1 for next year. Just point of clarification.
Thank you for the clarification. Opposition, you have 1 minute. Your time, if you're ready, your time starts now.
Okay, so yes, I would counter the argument, there's no harm, as Darren said, there's the opportunity cost that we could spend this money to RSO and for example, emergencies funding, when they have competition, for example, that really help them. For example, this semester, the finance committee is cut 97% of their budget, and it's very limited resource allocation for RSO, and after I close the emergency funding request, there's still a lot of people asking for that, which is not a good thing for SGA. Second thing is that we're talking about increased engagement for the SGA event. We could do better at the first event of multicultural night, because if we haven't done well from the first event, so why are we double the money value for the second event?
18 seconds left, opposition.
Yeah, I just think we need to be smart and critical about this. There's events happening this week, SoulFest week is happening, that I'm missing right now because we have an SGA event or SGA meeting. And so like there's events that SGA RSOs have and we don't show up to. We have 2 events that we show up to. What if we made it 3 that you have to show up to, 4 that you have to show up to as a senator? Because we're missing out on the events that are happening on our campus that we pay for.
Support. You have 1 minute, your time. Okay, wait, can you guys face towards me also, both mics? Just turn them to face me. Thank you. All right, 1 minute starts now.
I would like to point out that we collectively, as a body, every person in this room voted to raise our tuition so that the SGA can better serve students. If the message that we as a governing body who just raised people's tuition want to send is, it was too hard, so we kind of gave up. That's not what we want to do. We sit in an office that is paid for by student fees, leadership is paid for by tuition, and if we are trying to send a message that you cannot depend on the SGA to host an event and not even try to be better at that, I don't believe that that is what the future of this organization is. We had record low turnout in the latest election. We need more people to know where we are, know who we are, and if you look at every other student government in the country, they do 10 times more programming than we do.
15 seconds.
Point of clarification.
All right, I'm pausing time. Point of clarification, Chair Tron, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to clarify again, many reasons for raising the SATF. The SGA budget was not the only one. The largest was because of the new agency model, which we have this increased cost for salaries and the operating budgets, alongside with the ballot increase, because if none of the options passed, it would have been a $500,000 cut. But to say that the main reason we raised it was to address the SGA budget deficit is not correct.
Thank you for the clarification. Darren, I think they want you to hold on to that mic.
Yeah, you keep this.
Yeah, just hang on to that for a little bit. Or in case there's more clarifications. All right, support, you got 15 seconds left. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I'm in favor of this amendment is because the crux of the event is focused around fundraising, and I think it makes sense to exploit the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the student union for fundraising. I think just because of the way in which like the budget allocation stuff works, our organization doesn't have a lot of agility outside of this moment to make this.
Time. Opposition, you have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
Yeah, we have a rich history of doing things on this campus cultural-wise. SoulFest weekend has been happening for 60 years. This is a weekend that's happening as we're speaking. And RSOs, they have events that are amazing. Every week, there's something going on. And I feel like as senators, we don't show up for them. We have 2 events that we have to show up to, mandated. I think that should be higher.
38 seconds. Time's going. Yeah, time's going.
Well, I just want to say all of the marketing that we did regarding the SATF increase was about giving more money to RSOs. So if we're talking about the optics of that and our optics on campus, isn't it kind of worse if we throw an event instead of just giving that money to RSOs when we have no mechanization as to how this event is going to work better than the event we just did? No postmortem, no discussion of like what went wrong, what we could do better in the future. Just another event seems to be the solution here. Is there
Time. Support, you have one,
Point of
point of clarification, yeah, go ahead.
Chapter 4, Section 2.14 of the SGA funding guidelines states that it is ineligible to use fee money to have goods that will be sold to generate revenue. So we cannot use fee money for this event for a purpose of fundraising.
Well, either way, regardless, I still think it is important to empower and platform these student voices of this organization, regardless of fundraising, because it is $18,000. And I would like to point out, I hear what you all are saying about planning. What I think is important is that we cannot plan it if we don't approve it right now. If we don't approve it, the money is gone. This event does not happen. There is literally no world where this event happens. If it does pass, then we as an organization can put our feet forward, the people who would like to help to plan this event for the next year to create a space for student groups in the spring. So if you guys don't want to do that, then that's okay. But I would really prefer if with that, you try to make our office more visible, because currently it seems like this is the only idea on how to do that. When we almost didn't reach 5% on our ballot, which is bad.
10 seconds left. Do you yield the rest of your time? Go. You have 3 seconds.
Oh, jeez,
All right, great. Opposition, you have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
I'm proposing maybe a little bit of a compromise. It seems like a lot of the, I'm speaking to Mr. Speaker here. A lot of the concern here is the money being allocated. I wonder an event like this, I think it's a good idea, get some good visibility for the SGA. I think I like the advocacy idea, maybe some storytelling, some speakers, that sort of thing. But I wonder if this sort of event doesn't need the same sort of expenses that Multicultural Night needs, such as the massive amount of money that goes towards food. I don't think this event needs to be very food heavy. So I wonder if the sponsor would maybe be willing to compromise and reduce the cost a little bit. I don't know if that's too much work, but it's maybe work with some of the opposition here to make it not the same cost as Multicultural Night, maybe like 10,000 or something like that. I don't know if the other people would agree, but
10 seconds remaining.
yeah, I think that might make people maybe more amenable to it.
All right. That's your time. Are you officially proposing a motion to amend?
A motion to end debate?
Motion to end debate. All right. Motion to call the main motion. Well, Will, are you making like an actual motion to amend, or are you just asking?
I'll take a motion to amend.
Okay.
Point of
All
order.
right.
Didn't we make the amendment first? You called the main motion before anyone made the amendments, right?
Yeah, sure, but in the past, I have taken amendments after debate has ended, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, technically debate's not over yet. I'll recognize the motion to amend first. What's the amendment?
Motion to amend to replace the word gala with celebration and replace the money total with $10,000 flat.
10,000. Okay, so this is, by the way, this is a motion to amend the amendment, because this is an amendment we're debating on right now, and we're amending the amendment. So the amendment is to change the word gala to celebration here, and to change the dollar amount to $10,000 from $18,024.05.
I withdraw my amendment.
Quiet, please.
I'm withdrawing my amendment.
Okay.
And I'm going to amend it the same way.
Okay.
Get rid of the gala. I'm actually gonna get rid of the thing about actually I'll leave the thing about the possibility. But I'm going to change that number to, that $7,224.05, which is based off of the cost rate. And actually, you can include this in the amendment based on the cost of the breakdown of multicultural night minus the food.
The amount was $7,224.05?
Yes.
All right, so a motion to amend the amendment has been called. The amendment is to replace the word gala with celebration and to lower this dollar amount to $7,224.05. Does the sponsor of the motion to amend the amendment wish to make a factual description?
Yes, so the amendment I'm making is based on Chair Hood's suggestion, and we are basically what we're doing is we are approximating the amount of money it would take to put on sort of an event of similar.
Opposition, listen.
Yeah, they would put on an event, some sort of I'm changing it so that I'm taking the word gala out so that we can just sort of have a greater agility of like what the event looks like, and then we're taking out the food upon Chair Hood's suggestion, and then we can do some interesting presentations and stuff or whatever, and that gives us, I think, some greater, it both reduces the cost of this, which seems to be one of the big concerns, and also creates a sort of a greater agility about what the nature of this event can be, since we're considering this sort of from a perspective of like, we are taking this because this is our only opportunity to fund something like this, and then we are, and then going forward, because we do not have another opportunity to fund something like this, then going forward we can plan around this. Yeah.
All right. Are there any questions about this new dollar amount up here? Senator Nalivo, go ahead.
So you just subtracted the amount of money that was allocated towards like getting food. Do we have any idea of how long the event would be?
Well, we did have the frame of reference for a catered event, but now we do not. So again, that is up to the planning committee, which I actually didn't know so many people were interested in. So I'm very happy to see what people cook up.
I'm just asking because I think that like any event over like 2 hours needs food. So is it going to be over 2 hours?
If the Senate chooses to adopt this, then I would assume no.
Are there any further questions about the new dollar amount?
Could I respond to that a bit further?
Sure, yeah.
Actually, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was like sort of just based on the conversation. I think like again, I'm just sort of I was just sort of thinking about this subtracting the food from a broad perspective of like this giving us sort of a broad agility to do whatever we want. Maybe this could be sort of like a series of like shorter like presentation type events in the student union ballroom, akin to the Feinberg series lectures talking about the history of the student union. It could be any number of things, especially knowing now that we aren't able to use this as any sort of fundraising thing based on the bylaws, as Darren pointed out. So I think, I think so in a sense that number is fairly arbitrary, but I think, and I'd be willing to change it further as well. But I think that the frame of reference being the chair has suggested of like, oh, if we I just think that gives us a lot of flexibility. I think the broad idea for the event is that we don't really have another opportunity to fund it.
If everyone who's not recognized, just lower the volume a little bit, please. Senator Wu, you're recognized if you still have a question. Okay, Chair Hood, you're recognized.
Maybe a question for Mr. Clarification here. How specific do we have to be with line items if we were to, like, I didn't want to necessarily cut all the food, just like not it be $10,000. So like, can we have like somewhere in the middle? Like, do we have to have a specific line item for this many meals, that sort of thing?
Yeah, quick clarification. Yeah, so typically when we're budgeting for line items, we need the description, the cost breakdown, and evidence in advance. And so in theory, if we were to add this, it would be kind of irregular because we wouldn't really have any sort of that like cost breakdown. In theory, what could happen is we could put it in the elective fund. That is an option. I also do have a question, but
yeah. There's one question in the back before you. Senator Breen, you're recognized.
Yeah, so I'm wondering like what specifically is the 7,000 for if you're not having food? Like, could you just tell me what that is specifically?
Oh, want to clarification. It's you.
Yeah, so the rest of the costs would be for, if we're basing off of multicultural night's projection, would be for a host, DJ, photo booth, videographer, EMS, UMPD, Green Mountain Security, sound and lighting, and then a decorator.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions? Senator Wu, go ahead. There's a mic right here at the stand. No, not right now. You can face whatever way.
So I think having a celebration or gala is a good idea. There's a lot of alumni that we have, and I've gotten the opportunity to meet them. They're really great people, and I'm sure they would love to support SGA. But I also hear the opposition side where there were concerns about the planning and there were concerns about how everything came out. I think the question now is how do we make sure that this actually happens and there's great turnout, and how do we? I think that's the major question here, and the major concern is that are there plans or are there checkpoints to make sure that things are getting done in time, things are being purchased on time, and that's my question.
That question being, are there plans to have checkpoints in for the efficacy of the event?
I think more so are you planning to implement check-ins, are you planning to implement just I guess smaller goals and making sure you get there instead of doing everything all at once?
100%. My idea would be a joint branch committee for planning, which would include both, and the director of PR, which is allocated 5 hours per week during the summer session to spearhead this, and 5 hours a week for 12 weeks, and then a further 15 hours a week for the rest of the semester, assuming to take place during the spring. Having them act as the point person, as well as everything concerning the SGA social medias, I feel would be enough. Though I'm going to take this opportunity to say, if this Senate does not want to host this event, then I'm not going to rally for it. I wanted this to be an SGA event that empowered and platformed student voices. And if we feel that this is too high a burden for that, then I can't vote. So would it be helpful to do a room gauge?
Can I motion to hold a straw poll?
No, there's no motion for straw poll.
That's the Robert's rules. Sorry, PPI. Is there not in the Robert's rules a motion to hold a straw poll?
A straw poll?
Yes. I swear to God, in the Robert's rules.
But does it say not?
I will say not. Yeah, Chair Tron, question?
Yes, not clarification. So I just have a question about in terms of the event itself, because one of the main reasons of why this is being proposed as you need to pass it now is because if we don't pass it, we won't have the chance to pass it. And so my question is we've had since the beginning of the year to plan this, and so I was just wondering if there was more consideration that was thought up kind of ahead of time. And then in terms of the cost mentioned, even if we're striking, for example, the food, the other costs, for example, might not apply to the event being suggested. And so I was just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
Can you restate the first part of that? I was cooking up something different.
Yeah, one of the main reasons that is being asked to add this right now is because if we don't add it right now, we can't host it next year. And so we ask the same thing for RSOs and for agencies to plan in advance before deadlines and submit and do outreach. And so my question is, what was the timeline in regards to that before making sort of this amendment here?
Truthfully, I only realized that the occasion would be next spring after somebody from an RSO brought it up to me, so I didn't have a ton of time. And initially, I wanted it to budget under elective funds, which wouldn't have required a cost breakdown at all. But for the sake of transparency, I put it like this, and I guess I'm glad I did. I didn't know there would be so much opposition to it. So again, if we as a body would not like to pass this, then I would welcome we move on to the 6 titles in our bylaws that we still have to reform and pull off the bandage now, and we don't have the event, and that's that. How are we feeling, guys?
If you have a question still, will you raise your hand? No further questions? Okay. No, right now, the debate on the amendment is paused because we're amending the amendment. Is there a second to amending the amendment? Is there a second? Second. All right. Does there exist a need for debate on this change from 18,000 to 7,000? No indication of need for debate? Yes? All right. Then we are entering parliamentary debate on the question of whether or not the dollar amount should be amended from 18,000 to 7,000. Support on this side, opposition on that side. If you are in support of the $7,000 amount, you're behind this microphone. If you're not in support of that amount, you're over there. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so when we're doing debate, are we debating as the opposition supporting the original amount? Or like what are we debating?
It's all it is just your opposition to amending the old number to be the new number.
Okay.
All right. We'll go same rules as earlier. We'll start with the opposition. Each side will have 1 minute. Again, quiet, please, quiet. And please direct all comments to the chair. Opposition, you have 1 minute. Your time starts now. All right, starting.
Simply, I just want to say that if we are going to do this event, we should do it at its full capacity. That's all I have to say.
44 seconds.
Yeah, I kind of agree. If we're going to go between hosting a good event or a literally half budgeted one, which we, terribly honest, $7,224 does not buy us a lot. I would rather us just not take away that money for RSOs for an event which will not live up to what we need it today.
22 seconds.
Yeah, this is a pretty.
No, on their side, sorry.
Yeah, I'd say I like the idea. I appreciate you trying to compromise. I do feel like maybe without any food, this would probably be worse than nothing. So, but I would maybe still like to look for a compromise, maybe from the whatever discretionary fund or something. But yeah, I don't. Also, the way we have to line item budget for this, it just doesn't seem very practical.
Time.
Motion to end debate.
All right. I'll.
14 seconds.
Okay. I am gonna at least let the support side have their 1 minute since the opposition went, and then we'll vote to end debate. All right. Support, you have 1 minute. Your time starts now.
Yeah, I think the amount is, I think the actual number I feel is very arbitrary. I do actually, in fact, agree with Chair Bud that I think the spirit of this amendment is that I think I'm not going to sponsor this, but I think that I as a supporter of this am very amenable to changing the thing, but I think that changing it to the other kind of funding that I'm losing the word in my head right now, makes sense so that we can fund it, like figure out, like we can do the things and then fund it or whatever, instead of like trying to line out an item, something that we can't line out right now. I would yield my time to Cass.
21 seconds.
With 1 month of planning and basically no effort from anyone else in the SGA, I planned an event this fall. It was Wellness Day. I got no money spent from SGA. We had food from all the student businesses. They contributed food. So even without food, you could still have a successful event to some extent. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like people are mainly opposed to this because of how high the price is. I think, give it a
Time.
chance.
All right, motion to call the amendment has been called and seconded. So this is the vote to end debate on this amendment, just the change to $7,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Those abstaining say abstain. All right, in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and we'll end debate. Now the vote is on the question of amending the dollar amount of $18,024.05 to $7,224.04 and changing gala to celebration. All those in favor of this amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no.
No.
Those abstaining, say abstain. All right, I'm pretty sure that. All right, we're doing a roll call. We're doing a roll call vote. Associate. All right. He changed his mind. I'm calling it for the noes. So the amendment fails. Now we can resume debate on the original amendment. So, or no, yeah, this whole thing, which is the original amendment. So if you are in support of the gala event, please line up here. Huh? All right, motion to call the main motion has been called and seconded. All those in favor of ending debate, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Those abstaining, say abstain. All right, ayes have it. Debate is over. We are now voting on the whole amendment, which is to add this line item to the budget for the gala event. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. Those abstaining, say abstain. Abstain. All right. I don't know. So we're gonna do a hand raised vote. If you are in support of this amendment, which would add the gala event to the budget, raise your hand now. Thank you. Hands down. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you, hands down. Those abstaining? Okay. With 8 ayes, 15 noes, and 4 abstentions, the amendment fails to pass. All right, so now we are back onto consideration of S90, which is the whole budget. Are there any further amendments to the budget? Does there exist a need for debate on the budget? All right, with no indication of need for debate, the motion is called and the question is on the passage of S90, a motion to fund the Student Government Association at, what was the new amount? I got it. Minus. $352,660.73. All those in favor of passing this budget, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. It's the whole budget. Those abstaining, say abstain. All right, in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, that concludes the special orders. We'll move on to unfinished business from the last meeting. The Senate will now consider S87, a motion to amend Title II of the Constitution and General Bylaws of the Student Government Association, sponsored by Chair Dami. This was read last week. Since the first reading, we have only made 2 changes. The changes are, okay, one sec. The changes were to excused absences. We added a new clause that allows for excused absences for mandatory ESO events, the scheduling of which are outside of the control of the Senate member. Everyone gets 1 absence per month for a mandatory ESO event. So that will be excused. The next thing was just in the section for campus historian, we specified that they'll be working with the archivist at SGA. And those are the only 2 changes that were made. Other than that, everything. Huh? Okay, never mind. There's one more change. What is it? Okay, there was also some changes to the rules and ethics bylaws. But, yeah, other than that, everything is the same as last week. Are there any questions about this motion? All right, is there a second for, okay, second received? Chair Mello, you have a motion?
Motion to amend. Did you put it up?
And there's the responder thing here.
Okay, so I met with Attorney General Mullins, and we decided that there's a couple things that should be fixed here, also from judicial bylaws, which are going up later. Some discussions have been had about the role of the judicial versus the role of rules and ethics. I can get into that later, but basically, in summary, rules and ethics has a job outside of the bylaws and constitution primarily. That's mostly the judicial, and so a couple changes about it are for the ability of the rules and ethics to avoid conflicts of interest in similarity to what Ways and Means does, and also just clarifying language, and also allowing for rules and ethics to say that something does not belong to their jurisdiction and should be, according to the Constitution of the SGA, belong to the judicial branch. So first, just the person who submits an investigation is, or request for investigation is called a requester. Simple change. And then basically, if people have a conflict of interest within the Rules and Ethics Committee, or it's believed, they can abstain, or the Rules and Ethics Committee, similar to what Ways and Means does, if they believe that someone in the committee has a conflict of interest, they can vote to have that person abstain from the vote. And then the other change is allowing for the Rules and Ethics Committee to recommend that the requester refiles with the judiciary, because again, some things are not their jurisdiction, they belong to judiciary per our Constitution, and so for Rules and Ethics to investigate them, even though in the bylaws it may seem like they could, would actually be a violation of our Constitution, which is very important to follow. Any questions? Okay, yeah, that's it from my end.
If there's no questions, the chair will entertain a second for the amendment.
Second.
All right, we in the sponsorship accept the amendment. Are there any objections from the Senate? All right, then the amendment will be reflected. I took a second on this. Are there any further motions to amend or a need for debate on SC 87? All right, with no indication, the motion is called and the question is on the passage of S 87, a motion to amend Title II of the Constitution and General Bylaws of the Student Government Association. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Those abstaining say abstain. All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. The Senate will now move on to S 88, a motion to amend Title VII of the Constitution and General Bylaws of the Student Government Association. This is sponsored by Chair Dami and Chair Hood. Sponsorship is recognized for a factual description. S 88, Title VII.
This isn't your Title VII, right? You need to pull it up.
Yeah, so I already gave the presentation last week on all the big changes, but I do have some amendments that the committee and I talked about, and also Chair Tron brought, and also Attorney Farrell suggested. So,
Yeah.
So for those of you that weren't here last week, which was a lot, there were some pretty big changes being made, such as the creation of the RSG, which is a new type of registered group. It is literally called the Registered Student Group. They are smaller organizations that you have to apply for before you can apply to become an RSO. You have to be an RSG for 2 years before you can become an RSO. And while you're an RSG, you have limited amounts of funding. You have less priority for space and advising, but you also have lower administrative burdens, which is kind of the idea. It's kind of a trial run, proving ground, and looks like we have a document up. Yeah, so anything in green are new amendments we've brought in, which they're kind of sprinkled in throughout. So number one here, we have Attorney Farrell suggested we remove these procedures under grievance procedures because they were kind of, didn't really make sense. I don't know if you guys really care about that at all. Just, yeah, we can move on. Here, in consultation with some other people in leadership, we decided that kind of similar to Ways and Means, the guidelines, instead of requiring a vote from the committee every time we want to change, it'll just require approval from the UROC chair and the secretary of the registry. So it gives a little bit more flexibility between the two people in leadership, but it does take some power away from the UROC committee that was originally handed to it. So if you guys have strong feelings against that, make that be known, we can amend that. I didn't feel too strongly about it either way, but some people thought it was just kind of unnecessary to make the committee vote on it, as opposed to just the chair. So open to amendments on that, but that's currently an amendment that I am making. It shall require just the chair and the director to make changes. These were already non-existent. It was just, that was kind of just like formatting. You can see how many changes we made. So the idea here is that, what is this? As prescribed by the org, any mandatory forms that may improve the SGA source ability to provide services to the ESOs, the Secretary of Registry can report those. And that was, I believe that was to screen for duplicate RSGs should the committee and the Secretary of the Registry determine that was necessary for that year or something they wanted to undertake. So it kind of just gives more flexibility here to add any requirements during registration for RSGs that they want to, but it doesn't specifically require it. It's kind of up to the people in charge of how they want to carry that out.
Oh, they're leaving for different reasons.
For this, just RSOs are required to include basically a full e-board when they apply. Here, the Ways and Means Committee can also recommend a constitution be audited in addition to the source. That was recommended by Chair Trump. And also here, this is one more pretty major thing. We threw in this clause for kind of future discretion from the registry team. The wording here is a little weird though. But RSOs or RSGs may be merged in a viewpoint neutral manner by a process prescribed by the org. So basically, if the director of the registry and the UROC chair believe that two organizations are basically exactly identical, they can basically force them to merge together and operate as one. It's unlikely that that will actually happen, but we want to give them the power to do that if they did find an opportunity to do that. However, obviously, it has to be done in a viewpoint neutral manner and in a fair process, and has to be in the guidelines to do that. Yeah. That might be it. Yeah, so those are all my friendly amendments. Any questions on those or disagreements?
All right, is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Are there any further amendments or a need for debate on the motion?
Motion to amend.
Okay. Well, someone else has to.
Motion to amend.
Okay, motion to amend has been called. The amendments are just what was just presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Do you accept?
I do.
Any objections? All right, then the amendments will be reflected. Any further amendments or need for debate? All right, seeing none, the question is then on the passage of S88, a motion to amend Title 7 of the Constitution and General Bylaws of the Student Government Association. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Those abstaining say abstain. All right, the ayes have it, and the motion is passed. Senate will now move on. Let's give him a second. All right. The Senate will now move on to S89, a motion to amend Title IX of the Constitution, or I guess add Title IX of the Constitution and general bylaws of the Student Government Association. This is sponsored by Chair Dami and Chair Tron. Sponsorship is recognized for factual description, although I believe nothing was changed since last week, right?
Nothing's changed for that night.
All right, are there any questions for the sponsorship? Is there a second for S89?
Second.
Does there exist a need for debate, or are there any amendments? All right, seeing none, the question is on the passage of S89, a motion to amend Title IX of the Constitution and general bylaws of the Student Government Association. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Those abstaining say abstain. All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. That concludes our unfinished business. So the rest of this stuff, to be clear, is only going to be first read. None of this will actually be voted on. So we'll move on to S91. A motion to amend Title IV of the Constitution and general bylaws of the Student Government Association. This is sponsored by Chair Dami and Chair Mello. Sponsorship is recognized for a factual description.
Hi guys, so I've worked on this throughout the year, the semester, primarily with Attorney General Mullins, the SGA's president, Chair Rules and Ethics, people who are part of the judiciary, currently and present, the Chief Justice Klink, Senator Wu, anyone else, thank you so much for your help. But yeah, basically, let's see. So first, the authority of the student judiciary, this is just, a lot of this chapter was just like hard to read. So there's some like grammatical changes there for clarity. Judicial review is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So right now it's kind of unclear. When people go to the judiciary, they kind of go to them for everything under the sun. If they think that it's a problem, that's not the way that things should be done to be most effective. That's why judiciary gets a lot of cases but doesn't actually take them. So this is in the bylaws to clarify what their actual role is. It's drawn from the Constitution, drawn from the bylaws, drawn from SLSO's interpretation of their role and the Chief Justice's and within the SGA. So basically just clarifying, they do the Constitution, the bylaws, violations there, and official acts of the SGA, so like things that we pass. Convention of the term, basically it has it that the Senate convenes the term and the Speaker presides. That's something that we don't do, so it's just like a weird, outdated practice. Right now, basically, if someone wants to petition the judiciary, they have to go through the bylaws and figure out what they are supposed to be including in that petition. This would say, okay, judiciary, you have to create a publicly accessible document that just has everything that people need to submit. So just guidelines what we do for other stuff in the SGA. They are in favor of this. And then also, right, every Senate meeting, if you've noticed, at the end, there's a spot for them to report. The Chief Justice rarely, if ever, gives a report because, in their words, they like to be more separated from the rest of the SGA. It's weird, potentially, if the Chief Justice knows a bunch of us and then we are getting investigated and it's going through the judiciary if we have close ties to them. So just them being a little bit more removed from the executive and legislative is what they want. But also that means that we don't actually hear about anything they're doing. So this would formalize a way for them to be reporting to us without necessarily feeling that they have to go to every meeting or go to none of our meetings. Also right now, basically the way the process works, someone submits to judicial, it goes to the Associate Chief Justice. Basically there's a Chief Justice, Associate Chief, and then the General Associate Justices. The Associate Chief receives the petition, and what they will do is they will review it, see, okay, does this seem like something we can take? We usually talk to Attorney Farrell from SLSO, and then they will notify the group or the person who requested whether or not they will be taking that petition. This would require them to also be communicating with and informing the other members of the judiciary just to formalize that they do have to communicate with each other. It's a separate branch. We want them to be able to be functioning on their own and not having to come to us about communication issues that are going on. The associate speaker was just left out of the list of leadership for SGA. So it's added. Yeah, and that's it. So pretty simple changes for the most part. There's other stuff, there are other parts of the bylaws that regard judicial that are being changed, but for the most part, Title IV, just the main things are removing sections that are outdated, need clarification, or otherwise don't make sense and should be removed. Any questions? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. In accordance with the first read policy, this motion will be tabled until our next meeting on April 29th. And with that, the Senate will now move on to S92, a motion to amend Title V of the Constitution and general bylaws of the Student Government Association. This is sponsored by Chair Dami. Sponsorship is recognized for factual description. Yeah, Senator Wu?
This is Title V, right?
Yeah.
Motion to table, Mike isn't here. Yeah, a meeting to go to.
Okay, well, we're first reading it anyway, so it's gonna get tabled regardless. All right, just take a look at the text in the motion packet. I guess Mike's not here. So if you have any questions, Mike is the sponsorship. Did you want to speak about it? Okay, sure. Chair Dami will give a brief factual description and then we'll table it.
Okay, so most of the stuff that was changed in this had to do with the RSO council. So we just changed this to get rid of the specific councils, and then we changed it to the board of council to, like, you know, include everyone in there, and also if there were like some changes throughout the years to make sure that those were still accounted for in the board of council. Residence Hall Association, just a couple of grammar changes. Associate speaker was left out of that list again, so we added them. RSO council president, all of these chapters were kind of just put into chapter 3 because all of the chapters were in some sort of weird individual like formatting, so we just added it all into chapter 3, so that's why all of these are X'd out. But they all have to do with like just RSO council, like voting members and all that kind of stuff. Each RSO council shall be allocated one president instead of a whole e-board. I think that was like one of the bigger changes of the subsidiary governance bodies. And then the president shall be elected in a manner that is compliant with all of our other elections that happen. You guys can keep going. And these are the responsibilities for the council presidents. They mostly act as a liaison between SGA and the RSOs that they are the president for. So, yeah, mostly it. Yeah, they report mostly to the director of the registry and then the director of finance as well. This is just talking about the board of council in general. It's going to serve as a communicative body to address all of these things. So updates on financial and registry related policy to the SGA, issues relating to the SGA or source, recommendations on SGA or university policy from the RSO council presidents, and then other grant opportunities and programming initiatives and stuff like that. Got rid of the treasurer's board because they haven't met in a while, so it was just outdated. RSO trainings, board of council will also just meet with an advisor in the source, and then the director of the registry and the director of finance, I believe, and the chair of Ways and Means as well. This is the ad hoc? Yes, the student investment board. Same thing, just adding a preliminary application and stuff like that. And that's it. Yeah. Not
Any
many
questions?
changes, but you guys can also just ask Mike throughout the week. He mostly changed this stuff, so yeah, it'll be voted on next week. So you have time to look over it.
Thank you. Yeah, if you have any suggestions, please read through the full text of the motion, and if you have any suggestions for changes, reach out to Mike over the course of the next week. But in accordance with the first read policy, this motion will also be tabled to our meeting on the 29th. We will now move on to S93, motion to amend Title I of the Constitution and General Bylaws of the Student Government Association, sponsored by Chair Dami. This one, I can speak to it a little bit. Basically, most of the changes are just wording and grammatical changes. In Chapter 1, Section 15, we just added the specification that transition binders can be virtual documents. And then in Section 28, the Registered Student Organization Council was changed to the RSO Board of Council. Beyond that, in Chapter 7, there's some changes to the Coordinating Council that clarify more of its procedure, specifically with regard to the timeline of appointments to the Coordinating Council. And then we have expanded their ability to, beyond just appointing a temporary ODC and Ways and Means, to say that the Coordinating Council can appoint any temporary committees as described in Section 10 of this chapter, which, going further down, yeah, if you want to speak on it, you can.
Yeah, so we kind of came up with this change because in terms of the new ad hoc funding process for RSOs, if Ways and Means is going to be having a temporary committee during coordinating council sessions, AA would also need to be in session during that time because in case appeals happen for legally petitions or budgeting or anything like that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, Ways and Means would likely be meeting over the winter break, just to have that continuous timeline for our RSO application for funding.
Eyes up, everyone. These are just first readings, so it'll be quick. Is that everything from your end? All right. Yeah, the changes to the coordinating council. Do you have anything else? Other than that, like it literally is just wording and grammatical changes. That executive method, legislative method, judicial method is for requesting SLSO legal memos. So just the 3 different branches requesting different kinds of memos. That's pretty much it. There. Yeah, Chair Hood, can you pass him that mic over the stand?
Oh, I'll just clarify, Chair Hood does have some changes to be made for, in terms of the Title VII, that we just have to add some Title VII definitions into Title I, to make sure that everything is just compliant with the bylaws. You can amend more.
No, not right now, because
Yeah.
we're gonna table, we're not gonna second it, so not right now.
Another change just to have brought up, because I think it's important to highlight here, this would allow impeachment to be brought against all executive officers, not just president and VP. Right now, all members, including senators and chairs and speaker and assistant speaker, and the president, vice president have processes for expulsion from the student body. The only offices that don't are executive appointed offices. So this is just a potential amendment here to allow for, I mean, in my opinion, it would be more equitable across all positions in student government, allowing the student body to bring charges or ability for removal for these positions. And
Vice President Nalivo?
Why is that not extended then to all officers?
so chairs in the bylaws and associate speaker and speaker already have abilities for expulsion. So that's a different process that's defined differently from articles of impeachment, but there's a process for expulsion of legislative members and officers. This was also consulted with the president, and he's in favor of this change. Attorney Mullins is also in favor of this change. SLSO approved of it as well.
Vice President Nalivo, go ahead.
Right, but the expulsion of a legislative member of this body would then be a private affair, but of an executive member would then be an entirely public affair?
Expulsion of legislative members, including senators and chairs, go, and associate speaker and speaker all go in front of Senate. They're brought up by individuals and they go up to Senate the same way this would, or they go up, to this, So they're all made public. There's no difference here. In both cases, they go to Rules and Ethics, and Rules and Ethics would bring them to the Senate. So the process is virtually identical in a slightly different manner.
Yeah, expulsion against the senator and me and him can also be brought up by petition, just by any person.
This is more of a clarifying question for my understanding. The concern is that there isn't an expulsion process for executive officers currently, and that this would allow for that. Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? All right, Seeing none, the motion will be tabled to our next meeting. Yeah, the motion will be tabled to April 29th. Senate will now move on to S94, a motion to amend Title VI of the Constitution and general bylaws of the Student Government Association. This was reviewed by the Committee on Ways and Means on April 20th and was reported with amendments sponsored by Chair Trong. Go ahead.
Yeah, so briefly, the first major change that we made is that RSGs will be eligible to request from the emergency fund, and we're also broadening it from the emergency fund to also include travel for RSOs and RSGs. This is based off the results of the ballot elections where we're planning on having increased amounts of funding, and so we'll be able to better support RSOs and RSGs. The next big change for capital improvement, we're moving that back from Finance Subcommittee back to the Ways and Means jurisdiction. The reason for this is because for these capital improvements, there'll be a large amount of funds being allocated, and so we want the full oversight of the Ways and Means Committee and the Senate as well before those get approved for those large projects. For accountability logs, the sections adding like delegations. So, for example, the president can delegate approval to the vice president or to the chief of staff. The speaker can delegate that approval process to the associate speaker, as well as a formal process in terms of what counts as an excuse to extend an accountability log in line with what we consider for Senate attendance. And then there's also updated stuff for vacancies as well during the coordinating period and during the regular period, clarifying accountability logs. So accountability logs, currently it says if you miss 3, you resign by non-action. However, after consultation with Attorney General Mullins and with SLSO, you can't have that apply to elected positions. And so we added a clause, basically added a clause, so that it only works, right here, section 9, unelected appointed positions. So that would be all chairs and then all cabinet members excluding Core 4. And so in theory, if a Core 4 member were to not fill an accountability log, they would not be resigned by inaction. However, they would technically be in violations of the bylaws, and so you could still bring them to judiciary or rules and ethics respectively. Any questions before I continue? Okay. Next big change, it's just clarifying for capital improvement funds that'll be in a separate fee account, just for transparency purposes. And then I would say the biggest part about, that's just outlining the biggest part about the Title VI is major reforms to the way that DFN committee will be running next year. And so through consultation and feedback with the Secretary of DEI, with the Chair of SOJEC, with President Borowski, we have changed the structure. I believe it's Chapter 16. But we have amended the structure so that the way it's going to be structured is that the Director of DEI, which is the Secretary of DEI, will by default chair the committee, and so that way that responsibility is clearly outlined. So over the summer, they'll have more time to work on the guidelines and train and prepare for that role. Whereas before, the president would preside, and it's kind of a gray zone on who's responsible for the guidelines, who's responsible for upkeep of that up until the beginning of the semester. Another big change is that we're having it so the vice chair is also codified, and so there's a minimum of 5 members on the committee. So the idea is the chair is the director of DEI, the vice chair is going to be SOJEC, and then you have 2 members appointed by the vice chair, and then 3 members appointed by the director of DEI, which means you have the 3, probably in practice, 3 legislature, 3 executive split, and then the chair is executive. And so that preserves that structure from when the DFN was originally founded. And if any additional members want to be added to the committee, they would just be added in segments of 2 to retain that balance. Same thing goes for vacancies. Whoever appointed them, we just appoint them as well. Another big thing is we added a for cause clause, say that 5 times fast, for the dismissal of the chair. So in theory, if the director of DEI was fired, but they were not removed from the DFN committee, they would still reside. So the process for that is the president would have to make that recommendation to remove them from the DFN committee, and then the DFN committee would have to vote to remove the chairperson with a 2/3 majority vote. And so if the director of DEI was fired, but the committee said no, then they would still reside over the DFN committee, even if a new director of DEI was appointed. And this is sort of to prevent any sort of like, they were like, I guess, like a political falling or any sort of like punitive punishments and sort of that way that the chair of the DFN committee would not be kind of punitively punished for that. And then I think the rest of it is just straightening things out. Oh, no, that's actually very important. Yes. Fiscal year ending balance. So this is just re-clarifying it. So the way the new process is going to work is after Ways and Means passes the S1, we're going to do a priority list of line items that should be funded based off objective criteria in Title VI. And so if we have extra money, which we are projected to have, that priority list after being passed by the Senate will be binding, and then the extra money will first go to the items on the priority list, and then any extra money after the priority list has been funded will be up to the coordinating council to approve and disperse. This segment also allows the ability for Ways and Means and the SGA to delegate some authority and some funding to the SGA advisor and the SATF advisor. So what this would most likely be like in practice would be like this towards the end of the year. JD or Michelle would submit their strategic plan to the committee. We would evaluate that. Let's say they want to get lockers for RSOs, for example. If Ways and Means and Senate approved of it, let's say for $5,000, that would be allocated like based off the priority list, and then that would be delegated out over the summer. And then the oversight would be if the Director of Finance, the Chair of Ways and Means, and the Coordinating Council, so Director of Finance, Chair of Ways and Means, both recommend, in addition to a majority vote of the Coordinating Council, to freeze the funding, then funding would be frozen. Hopefully that won't have to happen, but that's just like a break glass of emergency type of thing. Yeah, and then other than that, I think that's everything.
Cool. Are there any questions about the changes to Title VI? All right. In accordance with the first read policy, S94 will also be tabled to our meeting on the 29th. That concludes the new business for this meeting. We will now move into officer reports. Although the chair will advise that we make these reports quick because there may or may not be something after. So, Trustee Marino is recognized. President Borowski is recognized. Vice President Nalivo is recognized.
Hi. I went to a lot of meetings and I did a lot of stuff. And I'm going to tell you what happened at the Athletics Council, where I was the only person to show up from SGA other than Sid. Again. Woohoo!
Thank you. Sorry. I don't have too much to report. Our banquet is on the 2nd. It's at 2:30, not 2. 2:30 to 5, but it's still at Garcia's. So come by, the food will be free. I don't know, maybe I'll give a speech, maybe not. So Saturday, May 2nd, 2:30 to 5 p.m. That's all to report. The rest is in my written one.
My report out is in the packet. I just wanted to make a clarification. Earlier there was a question about whether straw polls were allowed to be used. According to Robert's Rules, Chapter 13, Section 45, Paragraph 72, straw polls are not in order unless we are in committee of the whole, because straw polls do not count as parliamentary business. Thanks.
All right. Chief Justice, we recognize the President. RHA President, RSO Council Presidents. Does any Cabinet Secretary wish to make a report out this time? Secretary Gallo, you're recognized.
Hi guys, keep this quick because I just forgot to put mine in the packet this week. I just want to say last Friday I had the 5 college board meeting where Hampshire College talked a little bit about how they're handling the transfer of their students and a bit about the bus routes. We're trying really hard to make sure those are kept open for them this next semester, even though there's probably going to be a lot less usage of them because there still are going to be students on there. If you want any more information, you can come talk to Cody or I about it and we can get a little more into it. And other than that, Again, if you want to go to the town council on Monday, come and speak with me Saturday from 2:30 to 6, and we can figure that out. Other than that, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other secretary? Yeah, you're recognized.
Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of
I think
the.
it's off.
Oh. Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of the Secretary of DEI. He couldn't be here today. So this week he's been working on research related to Alana, student experience, engagement, and with future DEI initiatives and advocacy efforts. Also, he's been connecting with student bridges and SEPA to explore collaborative opportunities around student advocacy and support.
Thank you. Does any other cabinet secretary wish to make a verbal report? All right, then we'll move on. I went to Faculty Senate with Associate Speaker Germain and Chair Mello. I don't have my notes on me right now, so I'm just gonna go off memory, but the biggest point of discussion for the meeting, which was a very long meeting, was regarding a new policy from the Provost's office. Basically, they are now going to be requiring that all assistantships offered to graduate students add up to 20 hours total. Right now, a lot of them are on contracts that are for PhD students. A lot of them are on contracts that are only 10 hours a week, and the provost is now going to be requiring that all assistantship contracts made from this point onwards be either 20 hours or not be offered at all. There was a lot of pushback from the faculty about how that would lead to lower PhD admissions, since they wouldn't have the funds to offer as many 20-hour assistantships, and so they'd have less pull. But the provost's argument was that if we are going to be pulling PhD students in, we should have the necessary resources allocated to give them a good quality of life. And the assistantship can be like a combination of a TA position and an RA position, as long as it adds up to 20 paid hours total per week. Yeah, those were all the big notes from that meeting. So if there's any questions, feel free to come up to me. Vice President Nalivo, you're recognized.
I attended the Athletics Council meeting. I'm going to give you a lot of information about what they talked about. It was quite a large meeting. And this is the kind of stuff that you could learn if you bothered showing up. Okay, first we got an update from Coach Carville and how the hockey team's doing. And then there was an update from Jeff Smith, who is in charge of Recwell here at UMass. And he is seeing a lot of success. If you don't know, SGA is at the tail end of our transition, or kind of 3/4 of the way through the transition for club sports to be fully in Recwell. I'd say it's pretty much almost done, but there's a few amendments going up from the Ways and Means Committee, which is why I say I wouldn't say that we put a bow on it yet. Success in campus-wide events like Sunset Yoga and the Nest that's opening in O'Hill. Nest stands for Nurture, Empower, Grow, Thrive, if you didn't know that. And it's going to be open on Wednesdays and Fridays, and they had a lot of signups for what they called like launch spots. So there were 150 slots for UMass students to sign up to try out the Nest in the first group, and those all went super quickly. Well-being, educational services. Carrie Russo has been hired for this position and is expanding a lot on the main focuses of nutrition, sleep, sexual health, digital health, how much you use your phone, etc. Data is showing that students who utilize Recwell services, they have a direct correlation to students with higher GPAs and have a higher graduation retention. Recwell is rolling out a camp for 7 to 12-year-olds in Western Massachusetts this August. I thought this was a really cool example of departments building their own revenue through creative ways. Really cool outreach opportunity, active opportunities for the youth in the area. Faculty is interested in collaborating with Recwell and SGA on the transition of club sports. They seem really love intramural sports, club sports, just the idea of the undergraduates and how we utilize those services, I would implore this body to reach out to the faculty senate and see how maybe we can diversify this body into more students who maybe play those sports. Some of the members of this council are still a little salty about the fact that when we built the rec center, we reduced it in size a very large amount. Then we got a report from athletics. Baseball and softball are doing well. Women are dominating the MAC. Women are winning 10-2. Yay! Rowing, women is looking really great. It looks like they will do a complete run in the MAC all the way through to the championships. Tennis, the MAC championship was this past weekend. I forgot to follow up on how they did, but I hope that they did well. And they need an indoor court really, really bad. And there was also an interest in athletics, specifically Kirsten and Thorbjorn, and their interest to present to our body. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other faculty senate representatives? Chair Mello, you're recognized.
A bunch of changes went through for virtually every program in Eisenberg, so if you're in those, please let me know if you'd like more information. It's primarily to get more career readiness courses for students in those programs. There's some other program changes that went up and a couple new certificates on campus. If you have any more questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any more faculty senate representatives? All right. Are there any ESO event representatives present? Any SAB representatives? ESO event or SAB? ESO event, you're recognized.
Yeah, so I came up here a couple weeks ago talking about I'm So College. I'm So College is tomorrow, Student Bridges event. They're an agency on campus. They're getting a ton of high schoolers from the area on campus, from cities like Springfield, Holyoke, all of Western Mass, pretty much. And they're gonna be here at 3 o'clock from 3 to 6 in the Student Union. So please, if you can, stop by. It's gonna be in the Student Union Ballroom. It's a big event. There's gonna be organizations tabling like mine's. And so please stop by, say hi. It's really good for the kids, to really see college students and interact with us. So please, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more ESO event representatives? Any SAB representatives? Chair Trong, you're recognized.
Yeah, briefly, I went to last night as well. It was amazing. I suggest you guys go next year. But for I'm in Finance SAB, we met Tuesday. It was the last meeting of the semester. Touched base first on the student union. There's some ambiguity on how much we own. The students own 50% of the building. I know 2/3 has been floated, but the actual amount is 50%. Other things we talked about was with renovations on campus in terms of like reducing carbon footprint, in terms of like they're trying to put electric heat pumps into any new buildings or renovations that they do on campus, and they were talking about how that's actually more financially expensive than if they were to just keep it on the steam plant, which is powered with natural gas. And so that was kind of interesting to hear them talk about. They talked a little bit about ADA compliance, but the big thing they really talked about was obviously with the Bright Act and how funding would be used for that. They mentioned an indoor track being built, and specifically for housing, they said fall 2029 to 2030 is when they are working with a developer to hopefully get replacement housing. So the big thing with administration is if they're adding more housing on campus or renovating dorms, they want to make sure that they're not losing dorms, like net zero loss in dorms. So that's kind of a big priority that they mentioned for admin.
Yeah, Darren covered most of it. I think something that he talked about was like wanting student feedback, and they said like they did a survey in the past, or was it last year or 2 years ago, on like what students would want on like new housing initiatives. And he also talked a bit about the Fieldstone fiasco, because like they know it's pretty unpopular because how expensive it is. But they kind of explained that like, oh, we were looking to capture some of the off-campus housing people and give them a cheaper alternative than some of the off-campus housing that's closer to campus. I don't know if it actually turned out that way, but obviously they stressed that the chancellor is telling them our next option has to be affordable, an affordable option. Like that's their priority. They keep saying so. They are aware of our complaints, but obviously it won't happen for another few years because it's still expensive either way to build it.
They also mentioned for Flint Laboratory, I believe, which is right next to the parking garage by the Student Union, that they're going to be renovating the building there to have a new hub for the College of Natural Sciences, as they currently don't have a hub for those students. For the Fine Arts Center, they plan on installing a new loading dock because the dock is antiquated and they can't get the new equipment for performers in and out of the building.
All right, thank you.
Oh, wait.
Wait.
One more fun fact we learned is that the Du Bois Library is partly held up by the bookshelves. So they cannot remove the bookshelves without the building like maybe falling down. So just think about that next time you're in the library.
Great stuff, thank you. Any more SAB representatives? Okay. Does any committee chair wish to make a verbal report out at this time? All right, nice. JD, anything? Nope. All right, then in that case, are there any motions on the floor other than a motion to adjourn? Chair Mello? Motion to add business not anticipated to the agenda has been called. The chair will now read the motion. Well, not the whole motion, but it's a motion to amend Title 8 of the bylaws. So is it just the first reading? Yeah. Okay. This will fall in accordance with the first read policy, so we'll just be doing the reading today.
Brief first read. AA met very recently, so. It's the title on elections. This was primarily sponsored by Chair of Outreach and Development and your new speaker for next year, Morgan Kim. I had one amendment to this, which includes, basically, there is a clause in this that allowed for any cases investigating a candidate for office would go to rules and ethics. If you think about what it means to have active senators as part of a case where they might be running that same election for Senate the following year, there might be some issues there. So for all other aspects of the elections, it goes to judiciary. So it was decided that it would make more sense for any issue with a candidate for them to go to judiciary instead of having to go to rules and ethics instead, just to allow it to be more separated from the Senate, from the executive, as the Attorney General's on rules and ethics as well. Most of this is grammatical changes and updating things that are no longer applicable or consistent, such as elections chancellor, it's the chancellor of elections. Some stuff include the trainings, bylaws is referred to instead of general bylaws, just a grammatical thing for the bylaws here. Yeah, these are all pretty small changes, just capitalizations. Campus design copy is no longer a student business that exists, so obviously the campaign fund going to that does not make sense anymore for our bylaws. Just the timelines of the elections also were inaccurate. We had FERPA spelled out fully, in the bylaws other places it's not. Yeah, the SGov system, so historically elections happened in person. Students would show up to a polling location on campus, they would vote for people for office. That obviously makes sense when you think about the fact that the SGA was established in the 1800s, if you didn't know that. But obviously now we have technology, it doesn't make sense to do that in person anymore when we have the ability to use something like Campus Pulse or online technology, even if it's not as great as we would like it to be. Yeah, so polling locations no longer exist. Ratification processes, wording there. Some of the wording here was just a little bit odd, didn't really make sense. This was more of a major one, so part of the process of elections is that someone would be able to be endorsed, the candidate would be able to be endorsed by an RSO. It's just clarifying that process a little bit in more detail for the current elections processes and the UROC processes. I think that's it. Anything else to add? Pretty simple, first read, should be up in Senate next week. If you have questions throughout this, contact Morgan, contact Ursha, or anyone from AA for more information. Any questions?
All right, so I guess if we're adding it to the agenda but not overriding first read, all right, this is how we'll do it.
Motion to add to the
Is
agenda,
there-
the motion is tabled.
Yeah, is there a second for the motion? Okay. All those in favor of adding this business to the agenda, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Those abstaining, say abstain. All right, motion is adopted and the item is placed on the agenda. However, it falls under the first read policy and so will be tabled to our meeting on the 29th. Any other unanticipated business? All right, seeing none, the associate speaker will record the ending roll call.
Senator Baker? Here. Senator Baker present. Senator Breen? Here. Senator Breen present. Senator Calvo? Here. Senator Calvo present. Senator Chamo? Chamo absent. Senator Chaparro? Senator Chaparro absent. Senator Durrigi? Here. Senator Durrigi present. Chair Donnie? Chair Donnie absent. Senator Haycock? Present. Senator Haycock present. Senator Edipole Espinal? Here. Edipole Espinal present. Senator Hiernan Donnie? Here. Senator Hiernan Donnie present. Chair Hood? Here. Chair Hood present. Senator Huang? Here. Senator Huang present. Senator Keel? Senator Keel present. Chair Kim? Chair Kim absent. Senator Coheisen? Here. Senator Coheisen present. Senator Martos? Senator Martos absent. Senator Neeson? Senator Neeson absent. Chair Mello? Here. Chair Mello present. Senator Maraschino? Maraschino absent. Senator Nato? Nato present. Senator Ing? Senator Ing present. Chair Nguyen? Here. Chair Nguyen present. Chair Nika? Why would I? Chair Nika absent. Senator Reichel? Senator Reichel present. Senator Reed? Senator Reed present. Senator Rogers? Here. Senator Rogers present. Senator Siegel? Here. Senator Siegel present. Senator Sun? Senator Sun present. Chair Swirsky? Here. Chair Swirsky present. Senator Tacky? Senator Tacky absent. Senator Tujwani? Here. Senator Tujwani present. Senator Tick? Here. Senator Tick present. Senator Krumgrip? Here. Krumgrip present. Chair Trong? Here. Chair Trong present. Senator Blacko? Senator Blacko present. Senator Lanciago? Senator Lanciago present. Senator Bender Wilson? Here. Bender Wilson present. Senator Walker Hoover? Senator Walker Hoover present. Here. Senator Wu? Senator Wu present.
All right, who's got a motion for me? Is there a second for the motion? All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. Those abstaining? Wait, I actually have to. Those abstaining, say abstain. All right, the ayes have it, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys for your flexibility today. I appreciate so many of you showing up even though we had to change the location last minute. Thank you guys.